Ever want to go on a cruise, but wonder what that cost would actually be?
In this video, we're going to go over the 5+1 things you should consider before booking a cruise. So, you're thinking of going on a cruise, but you want to think about all the costs that you need to budget before you go. We are going to give you 5 costs and 1 special case that we think you should consider before booking.
Yeah, so if you're new to this channel, let us introduce ourselves. So I'm Zach and this is Tiffany, and our channel is Tiffany and Zach. We have actually started our YouTube channel on the gaming scene, and we used to stream to twitch.tv, and now we are kind of transitioning to more of like a travel related channel. We've traveled a lot since 2012 when we got out of college, and we've gone on actually 16 cruises since 2012. So we feel like we have a lot to offer you in terms of information and future vlog-like material. So let's hop right into it. The first cost out of the 5 that we're going to talk about today that you need to consider when booking a cruise is the most obvious of them all, and that's the booking cost for the cruise itself. Before we get into the video and before we get into the cost breakdowns, the first thing we need to talk about is how we're going to baseline this video. We're going to baseline it off of 3 assumptions. The first is that you're traveling on a 7-day cruise from Carnival Cruise Lines. We choose Carnival because that's the cruise line we travel on. Number 2 is that you are choosing an ocean view room. There's several different rooms that you could choose from. You could have interior, ocean view, suite, balcony, all sorts of different rooms. But that's the assumption that we're going to make, is an ocean view. The third is that we're going to make the assumption that you're traveling with 2 people. That is the standard for most cruise bookings. You can travel with less, you can travel with more, either 1 person or up to 4 people in a room normally, but we're going to make the assumption that you're traveling with just 2 people. So if you scroll through Carnival's webpage and you're looking for 7-day cruises, you'll find that the average cost of a Carnival cruise right now, or the lowest cost for a Carnival cruise right now, is $379, and the average is actually $744. And that is of March of 2019 when we're making this video. Keep in mind that all of those costs are going to have to be multiplied by 2 in order to get the total cost. So $744, which is the advertised fee, is going to be multiplied by 2 to end up with, $1,488. But that's not the cost that you're actually going to end up paying. There's other kind of hidden fees that you need to take into consideration. For example, port fees, expenses, gratuities that you're going to prepay or you're going to pay once you're on board. Things like that that just are kind of hidden from the original cruise price that you need to make sure you take into consideration. So if we use $744 as our baseline for this cruise, we need to do some estimation of what everything is going to cost. If you take a $744 room, including taxes, port expenses, you're going to find that that cruise costs $1,784. Yes, those taxes and fees that weren't advertised, they are actually $300 roughly. When you add in the additional gratuities for crew members, you're going to find that that cruise cost actually goes up to $1,979. So the total cost for an ocean view room for the cruise itself, just the cruise booking itself, is roughly $1,979 on average.
The second cost that we're going to bring up to you today is going to be the transportation both to and from the port. So there's going to be 3 main ways that you can accomplish that. 1 is going to be flying, 2 is going to be driving and parking at the port, and the third way is that if somebody can drop you off. So for us, the most common way that we get there is flying. That's the one we're going to start with. In today's market, it's about $300 a person round trip flights for us to get to one of the cruise ports, plus about $60 in baggage each way. So just there with flights and baggage, you're at $720. But you also have to consider, oh wait, I leave my car at the airport, which is on average about $10 a day. So since it's a 7-day cruise, you actually end up having to pay 8 days at the airport, which adds another $80. So we have just now added $800 for flights to a cruise port. But wait, there's more. Of course, all these hidden costs, once you get to the airport, that's all well and good, but you actually have to get transportation to the cruise terminal. So if you look here, we're going to show a little clip of Carnival's transfers. Depending on where you're cruising out of, the price could vary, but it's about $25 a person, which then translate to $50 each way, adding an additional $100 on top of our transportation cost. So that's putting us at about $900 to fly and get to and from the airport. So to sum up flying transportation costs plus the cost of part one, you're looking at about $2,900. Or if you want to get really specific, $2,879. So you're thinking, well, what if I drive? It could be a lot cheaper, right? We did a little cost estimation on driving about 600 miles to the port, which would cost about $65, $70 in gas, somewhere in that range. And parking at the terminal would cost about $20 a day on average, looking across Carnival's ports. So for that cruise, you're now adding about $225 for parking. What this actually does to your cruise cost is, before the cost of the cruise and flights was $2,879, now substituting the driving and parking at the port, you're looking at $2,204. So you have reduced the cost by driving, but you know, if you can have someone drop you off, you should do that.
So now you've booked your cruise and you figured out your transportation for how you're going to get to and from the ship. That's it, right? Well, no, unfortunately not exactly. So one of the major expenses that we sometimes forget to book and think about is excursions when you're on the islands. And that seems kind of obvious, but people can forget and they don't really know how much things are going to cost. And you can go as cheap or as expensive as you want to, but we're going to take kind of an average for what we think people may spend on the island. So if you want to go snorkeling, you can plan on probably $50 a person. It could be more, it could be a little bit less, but at least $50 a person probably. Want to go scuba diving? Probably about $115 a person. Thinking about going to the beach? It could depend on if you're trying to do the all-inclusive, all your drinks, all your food included. But if you're not, and you're just planning on, going to the beach, it could be a lot less. So for the purposes of this estimation, we're going to use $75 per person per port, or roughly $150 per port. Most 7-day cruises are going to have probably 4 port days. So we're going to assume $600 for the on-island excursion type events that you're going to choose to do. Some of you guys may be thinking that's a little high. It may very well be a little high, but we would rather you plan to spend a little bit more money and enjoy your vacation than end up spending less because you budgeted for less. So $600 is what we're going to say. So adding in our $600, if you're flying, this brings your total to roughly $3,475, and if you're driving, it brings your total to roughly $2,804. Keep in mind, as we've already said, those island costs are going to vary from person to person and group to group, just because people are going to feel more comfortable spending more or less money. One way that you can think about saving some money, though, is not booking something ahead of time and instead feeling a little bit more adventurous and waiting until you get to the island. There's going to be individual tour operators that are going to be able to offer you the same or very similar excursions for just a fraction of the price. And keep in mind that those are not guaranteed by Carnival, but oftentimes they are very safe. We'd also like to point out that we have another video that will expose some of the ways to save money on cruising, and we'll go more in detail on that video. If it's already posted, it'll be right here above my head. If it's not, it'll be coming soon.
So now that we've covered the cost of the cruise itself, transportation to and from the port, and port expenses, we're going to move on to cost number 4, which is going to be onboard expenses that you may not actually think about. For example, the most common one is beverages. Carnival's only offers, your plain coffee, lemonade, water, and tea for no charge. If you want something like a soda, a can's going to run you about $2. And if you want anything from beer to mixed drinks, they can run anywhere from about $6 to $12. And keep in mind that Carnival is also going to charge a 15% gratuity on top of that cost. So what can you do to mitigate some of the beverage costs? Carnival actually offers something called the Bubbles package. So what the Bottomless Bubbles package does is actually it covers juices and soft drinks. It's $8.50 a day, including gratuity. So for a 7-day cruise, that comes to $70.21 a person. They do have a policy against sharing, but we don't know that they would actually really enforce it. So what about those of you that love alcohol? Carnival actually does offer the Cheers package, which is $51.95 per day per person, and it allows you to each order 15 alcoholic beverages with some exceptions. Unlike the Bottomless Bubbles program, however, they do require that both people in the stateroom purchase that package to prevent sharing between family members and friends. So what exactly does that mean? It means if you want the quote unlimited, which is 15 drinks a person a day or 30 for the cabin, it's going to run about $941 for a 7-day cruise for both people in the stateroom. So you may be thinking, is it worth it? $941 is a lot of money. So we actually did kind of a break-even cost of what it would be. Each person would have to order 5 drinks a day, all 7 days, to make it worth it. If you think you'll do that, go for it. If not, just purchase them individually. A few other onboard expenses that you may want to consider are things like specialty restaurants. They do have their steakhouse on board, which runs $38 for an adult, $12 for a kid. It is worth it. It's delicious. They also have something called the Chef's Table experience. That runs $75 a person. You get a little tour, you do a dinner. But again, it's an additional cost that most people don't consider before cruising. Some other onboard expenses to consider are things like the casino, the arcade, the IMAX theaters, things that you don't typically think, oh, I'm going to spend money on this. So this one likes to hit the casino up. We definitely have to put that in our budget. So for the purposes of this video, though, we're going to assume that it's about $50 a day per person for onboard expenses. That would include a little bit of gambling, a few drinks, and maybe hitting the steakhouse up. But that's going to be adding another $700 to the price that we've already got from sections 1 through 4. To recap, we've estimated $19.79 for the cost of the cruise, and then either $900 to fly or about $225 to drive, $600 for port expenses, and now $700 for onboard expenses. This totals to $4,179 if you're flying to the cruise, or about $3,504 if you're driving.
The last expense that we want to make sure that everybody considers is additional tips that weren't included in your cruise rate. So there's going to be some people that tip doesn't include. For example, the people who take your bags, the porters, right before you get on the ship. It's kind of customary to tip them at least $1 a bag. Also, when you're on the island, any transportation that you have to and from your excursions, it's always nice and customary to tip those bus drivers or those tour drivers just a little bit. Also, any of the excursions that you have, you might want to tip those tour guides some too, especially if you had a good time. The last people that you might want to consider tipping, even though they were included in your original gratuities, is some extra gratuity for your stateroom steward who takes care of your room the entire week, your dining room staff who may or may not be the same person, but if they do a really good job, a lot of times we will leave them an extra tip, and then also any bar staff that bring drinks that are working really hard and we feel like they just deserve a little bit extra. So we plan on tipping somewhere in the ballpark of about $30 a day. That $30 a day kind of wavers, so for the purposes of this estimation, we're going to say $200 for the entire 7-day cruise. So if you plan to tip $200, that means that your new total cost for the cruise is roughly $4,379 if you're flying and $3,704 if you're driving. So there you have it. Roughly $4,400 if you're flying, or $3,700 if you're going to drive, to go on a 7-day cruise on average for 2 people in an ocean view room. Think that's too much? Well, we've got a video that talks about how to save costs on your cruise that's either already posted, and if so, again, right above my head, or you can click on the link at the end of this video. If that video is not up yet, just wait a couple of weeks, it'll be up and ready.
But wait, before you leave, we did mention that there's a +1 case. So for those that are like us, we have what we call our furry friend, our dog Riley, that we also, in every time we plan a vacation, have to budget the cost of what it's going to be to leave our dog behind. So we actually take her to a dog daycare and leave her there. We did about an average estimate of what it costs in our area, and it's about $40 a day for typical boarding kennel places. And obviously you can't just leave them there the day you leave the cruise and the day you come back. So typically for a 7-day cruise, we're looking at 9 days at a kennel. So that's going to run an additional $360 on average.
So if you guys enjoyed this video or found it useful, make sure that you leave a thumbs up down in the bottom of this video. It really helps us out, And if you wouldn't mind, if you think that you would like to see more content of ours, hit that subscribe button and it'll help us out in the future, and you'll get to see other enlightening videos that'll help you make good decisions for travel for both cruises and other travel related items that we'll talk about in the future.